Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Tech Ban. Welcome back to this dramatic reading of Batmare Beyond by Tatsuro. Chapter 3 Natural Talent. Bruce was amazed at how fast Rarity developed. Before long, she was speaking complete sentences, and only the fact that not all her teeth had come in kept her speech from being perfect. She also began tending to her own grooming and bathroom needs as soon as she had available facilities and tools that she could manipulate, although she was always happy to curl up in his lap and let him brush her mane, tail, or coat. She also seemed determined to go everywhere with him, constantly asking questions about anything and everything around her. She also grew bored quite easily, and could frequently be found trying to force the secret passage to the Batcave, despite the fact Bruce had sealed it completely. Eventually, Bruce decided he needed to find other way to capture her attention. That was when he introduced her to computers. Bruce had never really liked the increase in automation of the world around him, as more and more human effort slowly was replaced by more and more machine activity. As such, with the exception of the tech in the Batcave and the home security system, the only state-of-the-art electronics in the manor was the two personal computers, one his and one that had belonged to Alfred before his passing, and the holographic television. Nothing else in the manor had changed since he first donned the cape and cowl all those years ago. The stove was still gas. So when Rarity had pestered him with questions about the computer while he was working on matters for Wayne Enterprise, he had pulled out Alfred's old model and handed it to her, telling her to have fun with it. She had let out a coo of pleasure and immediately began exploring all the functions on it. Her telekinesis, which Bruce had first seen when she went to brush her own mane by levitating the brush, easily manipulating the keyboard and touchscreen. After a time, Bruce glanced over to see what she was playing with. He had expected her to be using one of the game programs, watching online videos, or possibly having found something amusing to read, since she didn't seem to have any problems with the written word. He had intended teaching her to read a few weeks ago to last longer, but she grasped it quite quickly. What he did not expect now was for her to be browsing the stock market, with a text document open where she was analyzing the flow of stocks and making pretend stock purchases. He couldn't help but chuckle in amusement at that. After watching her work for a time, he decided to speak up. "Rarity?" Rarity looked up at him with a wide smile. "Yes, father?" she asked, wrinkling her muzzle as her as yet not grown in front tooth caused her to list. Bruce smiled. "You seem to be enjoying that," he pointed out. "Oh, yes," she replied eagerly. "It's a most amusing game, but it won't let me play." To demonstrate, she clicked on one of the stocks, only to get an alert of not having an account. Bruce rubbed his chin thoughtfully. He had expected her to think of it as a game, but teaching her the value of money and the economy had to start somewhere, and a game was as good a place as any. "How about I set you up an account to play with," he suggested. "See how well you do with it." Rarity gasped happily. "Oh, father, would you?" she pleaded, fluttering her eyelashes at him. Even at this age, she seemed to instinctively know how to present herself to be the most appealing. Bruce held out his hand. Eagerly, Rarity handed over the unit. After a bit of typing, he handed it back to her. "See this?" he pointed. "This is your username and password, and this is your account balance, and this is your portfolio value. See what you can do with it." Rarity squealed happily. "Thank you, father," she said joyfully, immediately pulling the unit against her as she began to play. Shaking his head, Bruce returned to his own work. After a time, he went to the kitchen to start to plan dinner. On getting there, however, he discovered that he was short a few things he needed to feed them both. He went back to check on the little filly. "Rarity," he called out. "I need to go get some groceries. You okay here on your own for an hour?" "I'm fine, Father," Rarity called back, waving. "And I'm not alone. I have Ace." True to her word, she was laying back against Ace's barrel. The canine curled around her as she bounced the mobile PC between her hooves, manipulating the controls with her telekinesis. The canine question let a resignated snort, ruffling Rarity's mane, making her giggle and squeal in frustration. Smiling, Bruce nodded. "All right, I'll be back soon." With that, he headed to the store. Before long, Bruce returned home, his arms full of groceries. A brief glance into the foyer revealed that Rarity hadn't moved the entire time he was gone, her eyes still locked on the computer as she lay back against Ace. Deciding not to disturb her yet, he went to the kitchen and began to prepare dinner. An hour and a half later, dinner was finished, and he brought the 2 dishes to the table. "Rarity," he called, "time to turn that off." "But Father," Rarity whined, "I'm winning." Bruce blinked, unsure how he should interpret that. "Rarity, it's dinner time. You can play again another day." "Yes, Father," Rarity called back, her voice mollified. She trotted happily to the dining room, climbing up the stairs to her seat at the table. She set the computer beside her place as she focused on her food, smiling as she saw that Bruce had made eggplant parmesan, one of her favorites. Bruce glanced at the comp unit. "May I?" he asked, reaching for it. Her comment about winning had piqued his curiosity. "Go ahead," Rarity replied happily as Ace took up his usual spot, kneeling beside her chair. Despite his excellent training, Ace, like any other dog, still loved table scraps, and he knew he had better luck getting them at the table from Rarity than from Bruce. Bruce spun the unit around and activated the screen, calling up the stock market program, and stared. Rarity had, in the course of the 2 hours she'd been on the market, and apparently using some programs Alfred had left on there from his days before his employment at Wayne Manor, set up 3 ghost accounts attached to her primary to distribute her purchases to avoid unduly influencing the market, save when she made purchases specifically to influence the market. And the total portfolio value and the total liquid assets indicated that she had multiplied the initial deposit he'd given her to play with by a factor of 7. Regaining his composure, he turned back to the meal, looking at Rarity carefully as they both ate. Ever since she had first called him father, he had been thinking about what that meant for him. What it meant if she were to be his daughter. He had been concerned that the pressure that could bring to both of them would be excessive and possibly more than his weakened heart or her young mind could handle. But if she had such a natural talent and innate grasp of economics and market forces, perhaps it was time for Take Your Daughter to Work Day after all. And that's another one in the books. This is an interesting chapter because it really starts to build a bit of a mystery behind the character. Though I will point out that I don't think Rarity has quite the length of the physical art. This is a character who just kind of grows up. Actually, I want to say from about the next chapter on, I'm using an adult Rarity voice, or mid-adolescence Rarity. And we don't really see it until the end. Tatsuo, feel free to correct me. And again, fun chapter. Not the biggest chapter. Nothing earth-shattering here, but still fun stuff, interesting stuff, and the mystery continues. Oh, I'm gonna leave this one here and get to work on whatever the next project is. In the meantime, folks, my name's Tech Band. I wish you all good luck, good hunting, and safe travels. I'll see you in the next one, my banditos.